It works, but we don't know
Vamp,
how
vamp,
well it
vamp.
works. Yep. Vamping, vamping, vamping. It's all peanuts, all peanuts. Okay, so I think that's good enough. So now comes the part where I say, "Hi, I'm Trevor, and welcome to Catching Up on Cinema." If you're not familiar with the program, Catching Up on Cinema is a film analysis podcast wherein we introduce each other to films, expand our cinematic horizons, and, in essence, catch up on our cinema. So, it is the month of October 2024, and is once again that very special time of the month wherein we do our very special Tales from the Shelf episode. And in joining me in this endeavor, I have my good buddy Brad from the Cinema Speak podcast. How's it going, Brad?
It's going great. It's my favorite time of year, spooky season, Hooptober, for those in the know. And yeah, glad to be back here talking some Blu-rays with you.
Yeah, thanks for joining me this month, Brad. We've got the hell of a streak going. As far as I know, we really haven't missed an episode for as long as we've been doing this
And
show,
we never will.
and we
We never
never
will.
will. Never will. It's like I will disrupt your life as I please, Brad. You're in here with me.
I'm
Um,
happy for it.
but it is the Halloween season. In fact, Halloween is tomorrow night. So look forward to that. And also that factors into our theme for this month's discussion. But for those of you out there who might not be familiar with what a Tales from the Shelf episode entails, essentially what we're going to be doing here today is talking about our respective film collections. As you may have noticed in the background of my webcam feed and Brad's, we both own quite a lot of physical media. In our case, quite a lot of DVDs, Blu-rays, and 4K discs. Not so much retro media like VHS or Laserdisc or anything like that, but hey, maybe that's an episode for a different day. But essentially what we're going to be doing is talking about movies from our collections, and every month we like to have a unifying theme. And this month, Brad actually was the one to propose the concept for this for this month's discussion. I, however, titled it. So just to introduce the theme, the guiding hand following us through this entire discussion here today, we're going to be calling this a Kaleidoscope of Kills. I did say it was in the spirit of the season. I do assume we're going to be talking about some horror movies a time or two over the course of this discussion. But right off the bat, I'd just like to toss out there the distinction between a kill and a death, Brad. Like, I think we both
Yeah.
agreed that there is a distinction between those two things, at least in terms of how we talk about movies.
Yeah, I mean, I would say generally a kill has to be some when we're talking about memorable kills, I should say, if it's a
Yeah.
memorable kill, it's going to be something like the way that the person dies is unique, or there's something, oftentimes there'll be some sort of effects that are used. It's not just a person, sadly passing away from an illness on their deathbed. Nothing like that. There's usually an element of either fun or scares to all of these, and I don't want to say for sure, but I think all of mine use like effects in some way. Like there's something, because I guess they would have to, because if they're not dying from natural causes, there have to be there have to be some kind of effect involved to show how they die, how they bite it. So yeah, I'd say was my main thought, is like it has to have some kind of effects to it.
Yeah, actually, in my case, that's probably very similar.
Hmm.
But yeah, the major distinction is we're talking about the act of somebody meeting their demise on film, as opposed to like the emotional pathos or the emotional impact of a character being excused from the narrative. We're talking about the actual act of the killing. And a lot of times there's a certain spectacle or grotesqueness or entertainment value that comes with the act of the kill in a movie, especially in like a horror context or an action movie context or something. And in Brad's case, I'm going to guess that a lot of your stuff is horror. In my case, a lot of my stuff is action.
Hmm. Yep. Yeah, I figured, we talked doing just straight normal, like just horror movies, and we've done that. Did you say we did it last year? I think, or
Yeah, I think I titled after the WCW pay-per-view event Halloween Havoc. I stole
yep.
their logo in the whole bit. And it was
Yeah.
just general horror movies last year. But this year
Yeah.
we went a little bit more specific. Brad's idea, and I kind of love it because kills in movies are like there's a lot of memorable, cool ass kills out there.
Hmm.
Like there's whole for fuck's sake, I just watched Terrifier 3 in the theater last night, and in fact reviewed it 2 hours ago with my buddy Kyle. It'll be posted tomorrow. That whole fucking movie is built on the concept and the entertainment value of the kill, the
Hmm.
novelty factor and the entertainment value associated with characters getting offed. You can build a
Yeah.
whole movie, a whole fucking franchise off of killing people on screen.
And I felt like it would make it a little easier for you, open it up a bit, focusing on kills, because like you said, you can do action movies. I'm sure you can think of other, genres that it could apply to, but makes it so it's not just horror. I pretty much exclusively picked horror just because of the season, but if I really wanted to, I could get into action as well. I had a few ideas cross my mind, but I kept simply to horror on my end. But I figured you'd be leaning into the action side.
Well, that's part of why we do this discussion, is because we both have our own collections of movies. We both have our own tastes, and somewhere we meet in the middle and we get to teach each other a little something. It's fucking show and tell, folks. It's show and tell with movies, and it's a
Hmm.
lot of fucking fun. So steal this format. You won't be disappointed. You'll have a great time. But that being said, we're done with the preamble. So, hey, Brad, it's now that time of the show where I get to toss you directly in the path of the oncoming bus and ask you to lay down and submit your first kaleidoscopic kill for today's discussion.
Well, I have picked a couple because I've been doing Hooptober this month, which those of you who don't know, who aren't in the know, that's all right. It's basically, I don't know who started it, but it's a thing on Letterboxd now of that's what you call your 31 or whatever horror movies in Halloween. It's named after, of course, Toby Hooper.
Mm-hmm.
And there's one guy on Letterboxd who always comes up with these rules that if you want to follow, you can follow like very strictly. But the one rule that is like the main rule is you got to like at least watch one Toby Hooper movie. But anyway, I'm not talking about a Toby Hooper movie. I'm just saying these are some of the movies I watched in Hooptober because they're at the top of my mind. And I have been going through and doing a complete series rewatch of the Friday the 13th series. So obviously that is a franchise that is kind of uh the main focus is the kills. Like that's it lives and dies by the kills. Obviously some of the gore has been cut in those movies, but some of them has not. And I picked a couple entries in the franchise, a couple of my favorite kills to highlight here. Number one, in no particular order, I got Friday the 13th Part 3 3D, which has the shot. At least I hope it's this one. They all kind of blend together. The guy doing the handstand, and then the POV from the floor shot of Jason
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
hacking him with the machete in the groin. I love that kill. That is a classic. Next up, we have probably an obvious one, but it is a goodie. It's an oldie but a goodie. Jason X, the head freezing kill. Of
Yep.
course, the smashing of the head is phenomenal, but almost as good, maybe even better, is her head going in the liquid nitrogen and the sound of it freezing, like that just
Mm-hmm,
like
mm-hmm.
really hard snap. That's good. That is good. Although I will say that one is a little mean spirited because it's such a cruel death that you would think that would be something that would happen to like one of the jerks in the movie, like save the really mean ones for like the annoying characters. And she's like a very like nice, affable lady, so that
Yeah.
one feels especially mean. Like there's a lot of annoying characters in that movie, and she's not one of them. Which is an odd choice that she gets to that death. I don't know. I don't know if you feel the same way on that one, Trevor, but
Well, I won't
um,
derail you, but yeah, in having just watched Terrifier 3 last night, like that is a little bit of a sly trick that I don't think Jason X has any elements of slyness or any sort of subtlety in its bones. It's not that kind of experience.
mhm.
But there is something to that kind of movie where you're just kind of having a good time. You're expecting to just have fun with it, And then sometimes those kinds of movies surprise you with their cruelty, where it's like she was actually pretty professional. She was going about her job. Her uniform was quite skimpy, but hey, it's the future. Who the fuck
Yeah,
knows?
yeah.
But beyond that, fine lady. She didn't have sex with anybody. She didn't break any of the slasher movie rules or nothing. She was just doing her fucking job. And then Kane Hodder Jason just fucked her up the worst out of anyone else in that movie,
And
basically.
she's even sympathetic to him because like she takes off his mask and sees his face and she's like, "Oh, you poor baby." And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, I mean, so they were going for I think they were going for it to be like shockingly cruel, but it is a good one. It's very creative. And then my last one here may be controversial. And Trevor, I know you guys covered this movie at one point in catching up on cinema's history. I believe I listened to it. I know it's been referenced many times, and I think it has my favorite kill of the franchise. I think I'm going to go on record and say that Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday, has the best kill of the franchise. But I will say, specifically, the unrated version, because I
Yes.
did do a
Yes. Yes.
little
Yes.
research here, Trevor. I went back and rewatched that scene in the theatrical, and it is completely neutered. It is not anything special in the theatrical, but the tent kill
Yep.
in the unrated cut is amazing. It is it is like,
It
and
is.
it was like so like rewatch because I must not have, I don't remember that. So I must not have watched the unrated cut the first time I saw this, because that was like rewatching all these movies. That like was the one moment in this rewatch where I was like, holy shit. Like it took me by surprise. And I believe it is Greg Nicotero and his crew, I think, did the
Yeah. K
effects
and
in
D.
here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um and I mean the movie is far from great, but I think like I know a lot of people don't like it and they say, you know, it's Jason's not in it, blah blah blah. I think when I'm watching these all in order and I get to number 8, it's actually refreshing that Jason's not in it. It's like, oh, this is kind of different. This is kind of I'm curious to see where it goes. And it's not successful by any means, but there's enough cool shit in here, like that kill, a woman getting stabbed with a tent stake and ripped vertically upward. There's the guy who's melting. I love that, the weird creature that comes out of the guy's neck. I don't know, like none of it makes sense, but at the by the eighth movie in the franchise, I'm like, let's go with it. I'm kind of into it. Again, not amazing, but I certainly do not think it is the worst of the franchise. I think there's some very redeeming qualities about Jason Goes to Hell. And I mean, a lot of people hate it because of the title. I mean, I agree, it's a terrible title. It's completely misleading, but if you can set that aside, there's some good stuff in here.
Yeah, I don't like that movie very much. Like, Kyle and I were surprised by just how bad of a movie it is. All the points you made about the effects quality, I concede all of those. It does have some of the better gore in the whole history of the franchise. Honestly, like it has some really spectacular makeup effects, gore, kills, all that business. But just as a narrative, as a film, it's it's held together with scotch tape and
Oh yeah.
popsicle sticks with Elmer's glue. Like it's barely a fucking story. And on top of that, it doesn't help that it has like some of the worst fucking music I've ever heard in a film.
Yeah,
What is
the
the worst
score.
one then? Is I think actually Jason Goes to Hell is in that 9, and then 8 is Takes Manhattan.
You're right. Yes, you are right. Yes.
Manhattan I think is the worst one.
I would agree with
Um,
that.
yeah,
The thing is 8 and 9, you got Manhattan and Jason Goes to Hell.
yeah.
Manhattan is like, you know, even though it gets to New York, it's on a boat, so it's not typical Friday the 13th. It is essentially just Jason killing people. Like there's hard it's so just like uninspired and generic, and like it's bad in that way. This is like bad in an interesting way. So that's why I think it's not the worst. Like I would much rather rewatch this one again than Jason Takes Manhattan, because that one I just think is boring. This one is like kind of bad, but like it's interesting.
Yeah, my feeling on it is very similar to what you said, Brad. Where it is lazy. Jason Takes Manhattan just feels lazy in the way that the whole thing is structured. Like there's very little creativity in how Jason gets from wanders from kill to kill. Kind of, it's very bare bones. Even from a makeup effects and a gore standpoint, there's some magic that's missing there. There's a lack of enthusiasm. It is maybe the most aggressively neutered when it comes to the censorship as well. And on top of that, it's also some of the least impressive makeup effects. So it's like at least the one before that had John Carl Buechler.
Hmm.
At least that one had the excuse of we shot good stuff, but it was taken out. Takes Manhattan, they didn't even shoot good stuff. The one saving grace is that you get young Kelly Hu, and maybe people know who that is, maybe they don't. I big fan right here. That was kind of a selling point, but beyond that, it's kind of a nothing movie. It's
Yeah.
pretty lazy, pretty dry.
I mean, I do like about the franchise that, like, like you see here, like, it's not like some of the franchise, it's like it's very obvious what the best one is and what the worst one is. This
Yeah,
one, I've seen some people say, The New Blood is their favorite of the movies, which is, probably minority take, but
yeah.
I think I've seen every movie. Nearly every movie people say is like they'll defend is like one of their favorites. Like it's a small group, like 4 and 6 and maybe 1 are the ones that really rise to the top. But I think you can find people for almost every one of these that would say it is their favorite, which I think is interesting.
No, 100%. You're absolutely right. To use a quote that your boy Santino, who I believe is in the chat, can appreciate. Every comic book is someone's first. And every Jason movie is someone's first. And
Hmm.
sometimes when something gets to you at the right point in your life, it means the most to you. So maybe Jason Takes Manhattan got to you at a critical juncture in your life, or maybe it was the first one you ever saw, and therefore it has a special place in your heart. That's just how that shit kind of works. And oh hey, we got a visual aid.
Let me just
I did say it's
I'll
show
show
and
off the
tell after
full
all.
box here. Right? Don't A lot of them are out in the living room, so that's why they're not
It's
there.
a hollow box.
But
That's pretty
um,
spectacular, bud.
it is pretty good. I will say that my original Friday the 13th, the first one came with it was missing a disc. I mentioned that to you, I think, and I mentioned it on my show. I bought this like 2 years ago. Didn't think to pop open every single one and make sure all the discs were in there. Go to watch the first Friday the 13th, which is a 2 disc set, and it's only got one disc in it. But I will say, shout out to Scream Factory because that I sent my receipt, picture of my receipt, and they sent me a replacement disc. So no questions asked. It was very easy. So they messed up, but they fixed their mistake. So I was happy with that.
Yeah, they took care of you. I believe. Have you had that situation with Scream/Shout Factory before? I seem to recall that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they've had disc replacement programs. Like this one specifically. I know there were 3 discs that had issues. And when I bought it, it was already after the fact, so it came with the 3 replacement discs. Like I've actually got one of them right here. Part 3, 3D. Something with the 3D was off on this one, so they sent replacement discs. So yeah, that's the thing. I mean, a lot of these companies run into that where they have issues on their discs. But most of the time, they're almost always pretty good about sending out the replacements. Occasionally, they make you do weird stuff like Criterion making you uh, provide evidence that you destroyed your Citizen Kane disc
Oh
before they
yeah,
send
yeah,
you a
yeah. I remember that.
replacement.
Yeah,
Might be one of the more interesting ones. Like I get why, I get it, but it is very odd. But yeah, shout out to them because they hooked me up. I was real worried when I emailed them and I'm like, hey, I know I'm 2 years late and I have no way to prove this, but even though technically I did have a way to prove it,
you
we don't need to
did.
get
You
into that.
did.
But
Yeah,
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 I I,
yeah,
I recorded an unboxing of this and posted it, and you can actually see in the unboxing that it was missing a disc. So
yeah,
thankfully,
yeah. I
I
mean, if
did.
you can provide timestamps for when that footage was collected, then yeah,
Yeah,
you do have
yeah.
proof.
So,
Hmm.
but just I'll give them their props. I'll give them their flowers. They did help me out.
Okay. Well,
Uh,
wow, that was a hell of an opener, Brad. Where do we go from here? So I suppose. Oh, we have a comment from Santino, who the aforementioned Santino, big fan, frequent co-host on Brad's show, the Cinema Speak podcast. To be fair, that was my first one in the theater, and it has a special place in my heart. Lol. In reference to Godzilla, the Dean Devlin and Roland Emmerich Godzilla, American Godzilla, if you will. Gino, Godzilla in name only, if you will, from 1998. That was his first Godzilla movie. And yeah, sorry, Santino, you're wrong. It's an okay movie, actually. I've softened on it quite a lot. But I suppose ball is to me. You started things off with a franchise, a central character who's responsible for carrying out all the killing. I have an actor who I will be able to do the same thing with you. I think you had three movies that you singled out. I will do the
okay.
same as well. Three movies
Okay.
here. So I have here in my hands three movies from the filmography of one Steven Seagal.
Oh, okay.
We have Marked for Death. Oh, excuse me. Steven Seagal is Marked for Death, which is the best goddamn way to title anything. Steven Seagal is Out for Justice, and Steven Seagal is On Deadly Ground. So, these three movies, two of which are on Blu ray, one of which I believe is only available on DVD, of course, arguably the worst among them, and the only of the three that he directed himself, the man, the myth, the legend. Um, these movies all feature something that I would like to call overkill, where it's like he had to kill him 5 times before he hit the ground. Was it necessary? Absolutely not. But we got to fill out this movie somehow. So, Marked for Death features a villain who happens to be a twin. So, right off the bat, he kills the same man, the same actor, twice in the same movie. But then, when it comes time to finish the second twin off, he gouges his eyes out. Oh, yeah, by the way, they have a sword fight first. So, this is all after a couple of minute long sword fight. A really badly choreographed one that uses a lot of doubling for Steven Seagal, by the way. So, he gouges his eyes out. He also slices him a little bit with the katana. It's not quite a katana. Anyway, he banes him, Santino. He banes him, meaning he bends him over his knee to break his spine. And then he tosses him down an elevator shaft wherein he is impaled by a random spike at the bottom of the elevator shaft. So he effectively killed that man 3 times. Cool. But and also he killed that guy earlier in the movie as well because he was a twin. Uh, Out for Justice. Again, the finale of the movie features him fighting a somewhat overweight William Forsythe. I couldn't actually tell if he was just a little bloated or if it was because they rigged him up with a lot of stunt pads because of all the nasty bumps that he was going to have to take for the last scene of this movie. But he beats his ass for like 5 minutes straight, and it's the most one-sided fight in movie history. And that's saying a lot, being as like all of Steven Seagal's fights on film are exactly that. But he like hits him on the head with like a rolling pin. He throws him through every piece of furniture in the house, and then I think the killing blow is a corkscrew to the brain. Uh, Pretty cool. Not often you see in an action movie anyway somebody get corkscrewed. I mean, we saw uh, Crispin Glover get a corkscrew through the hand in Friday
Yeah.
the 13th
Yep.
for the final chapter. It wasn't the killing blow, though, the machete was, but he did get the corkscrew in the hand. Hey, Ted, where's the corkscrew? I love his dancing in that. And then finally, On Deadly Ground features so many memorable kills. Uh, Arlie Aramy gets a shotgun at one point. He gets a shotgun to the chest. But some of the more memorable ones are there's a lady in this movie who's just kind of not nice. Like she's just an evil corporate type villain. And she's in the background of a lot of scenes. She's not a major character or anything, but she gets like this grotesque death where not only does she crash her car, she has to sit in the burning car for just a few seconds. And then she has really complex makeup appliances on her face to show that her nose was shattered and her face is just destroyed. and we get to see her squirm for a few seconds before the car explodes.
Wow.
Totally unnecessary, completely extraneous. It serves no purpose other than to show this person had a particularly awful and cruel death. Because it easily could have been rendered with her just crashing the car and exploding. But no, we need to hold on her for just a few seconds to show that her fucking face got caved in and then she got blown up. And also, was it John C. McGinley is in this as a very strange villain. I think most of his dialogue was ad libbed. He gets his face thrown into a helicopter rotor, which is you only see it at a distance, but that might not be the last of bladed instruments like airplane associated propeller blades being used to kill people in today's discussion. But yeah, talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah, I just I think I've really hardly seen any Steven Seagal movies. And it's a bummer because I know how beloved he is, not controversial at all, just universally loved by all, that guy. So
Totally not a bad person.
not at all, no. But no, yeah, I just was looking on his letterbox, and the only movie of his that I think I've seen is Machete.
Oh
I don't
wow.
even I don't even know how much he's in that, to be honest. I don't remember. But yeah, he's definitely a blind spot for me. Um, but I do like some of those kills, like that the one that he directed himself with the helicopter blade thing and the car, like that's sounds pretty good. Sounds pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, he did direct this one. For what it's worth, like some of the action by his movie standards is not half bad. It is a mess of a fucking movie. Funny enough, like I think Roger Ebert's review of it, like the one bit of praise that he could give to the film was that it does end with literally a PSA of him talking direct to camera, talking about environmental concerns, and it actually is genuine. Like it's coming from like a real place of consideration. And Roger Ebert was like, "Yeah, that was nice. Like I could get behind that." But the rest of he's like, "Shit, it's like a
Yeah.
complete waste of fucking time." And it's one of those examples of you can tell this is not a tight production because there's ADR all over the place and the editing is a little loopy and just just not very cohesive, and it gets downright embarrassing when it gets into some of the Native American mysticism stuff. There is that. But in terms of like bloodletting and action, it's mostly relegated to the last 20-30 minutes of it, but for what it's worth, it's actually pretty decent. Like you do get some, like actually, there's another kill in on Deadly Ground. You getting me going, you getting me riled up, Brad. There's a bit where it's like straight out of a fucking slasher movie. Like it's in the middle of this big melee with a bunch of goons, and they're conveniently in a room with like crude oil in it, so they can't shoot their guns. It's like aliens. They can't use their weapons in that particular room, so they got to
Mhm.
deal with him and his fucking Steven Seagal mitts and his aikido skills and stuff. And he he like puts a knife in a guy's head, but then he does a thing where like he turns the guy around and then he slams his head against the wall and the knife goes through the guy's head. And it's just like completely unnecessary. But it's like director Steven Seagal, he decided I need to kill that guy twice. Maybe that's a thing. Like maybe it's a spiritual thing. He's like, no, I gotta kill these guys twice. Once for the afterlife, for the reincarnation.
Yeah, yeah,
I
I mean,
believe in
it could be.
Buddhism.
He just needs to show that he can do it twice. Like
They ain't
it's
coming
like
back
an
as no
ego thing.
butterflies.
Yeah. What like I mean, I'm assuming that like if I were to you were to recommend one of his movies, it would probably be Under Siege, right? Like that's the one to get into.
Actually, no.
No?
That's like that's probably his most mainstream and financially successful one. Like that was a
Yeah.
big fucking deal. That's a big deal movie, and it's actually a pretty good Die Hard knockoff. Tommy Lee Jones is fantastic in it, as is Gary Busey. But that's kind of the problem is that the villains are too good for that movie. Because as an action movie, it's adequate. Oh yeah, Calm Meanies in there as well, if that name means anything to you. I
Nice.
think Irish fella from Star Trek Next Gen. You'd recognize his face. Big old noggin, curly hair, big old fucking noggin.
Oh, okay.
He just plays an anonymous goon in it. But yeah, Under Siege. It again, It's his probably most mainstream of hits. Um, I would say starting from the beginning is the right way to go. Actually, Above the Law. I don't think it's his best, but it is essential to understanding the man, the myth, the legend. Like this is an entire fucking film meant to present him to the world. Like it's tailor made to package him like in all of his strengths. And it's Andrew Davis, I think, who directed it. I think he also did Under Siege, so he knows his way around Chicago detective movies. That's kind of his thing, Chicago action movies. Out for Justice is a personal favorite. Marked for Death, I would say, is lesser. But yeah, Above the Law and Out for Justice. I don't like Hard to Kill very much. Steven Seagal is Hard to Kill, Brad. I'm not a huge fan of that one. It's really weak as an action film, if you ask me. But I think that is the one that encompasses all that he is the most. Even the soundtrack, the style of instrumentation, even the music, the presence of his wife at the time being in the cast, references to him having a big dick. Um, it kind of it's the total package, and it came out when he was already rolling, so it's like this
Yeah.
is him kind of like overly flexing his muscles, like throwing his weight around, and he was starting to pack it on at that point too.
Just so everybody knows, I was kind of following along on Letterboxd while Trevor was ranking these Steven Seagal movies, and I think it was Out for Justice. You were like, "That is his masterpiece. It's my absolute favorite of his." And I'm like, "Oh, he must have really liked this." I looked. This guy gave it a 3 out of 5. That's the ceiling. That's the
Yeah,
ceiling.
yeah, that's his ceiling. Like it doesn't
That's
get
his
much
ceiling.
better than that.
I mean, that's fair. That's fair. But
I mean, he's not a good person. We should,
no, no, no,
like,
no.
it's probably in our best interest to not say too many good things about him.
I would be curious, like, if you were to go through and watch like 10 of his movies,
Mm,
like I did with Friday the 13th. If you were to go
yeah.
through and watch them all in order, do you think you would be like give them more and less weight? You know what I mean? Like you would give like Out for Justice, like bump it up to a 3.5 or a 4 because it's like I'm watching all these together, and out of these, it is by far the best. You know what I mean?
See, that would be difficult because there is a decline period for him that never stopped.
Well, that's what I mean. Like you have to he keeps going down. So if
Yeah,
you start at a 3, it makes his really bad ones seem like there's not that much of a separation. Like you need to have a little bit of a hierarchy there, you know what I mean?
you're right. You do need to make a distinction there because it's like if that one's a three, then what isn't a
Exactly.
three? What constitutes a 2.5? It's
Yeah.
like, huh,
Yeah.
that's tough. I'll have to think
I
about.
mean, that's like, yeah, with Friday the 13th, it's like watching all these movies in order. I get to Jason Goes to Hell, and I'm like, oh, this is a 2.5. This ain't half bad. If I
Yeah,
were to
you're
just
like,
like
it's
cold
different.
turkey, if I were to just cold turkey watch that, I mean, it'd probably be like a 1. Like, let's be honest. But like in
Well,
the context of the whole series, it gets a little bump up.
yeah, for full context, that is exactly what Kyle and I did. Because Kyle,
Yeah.
see, I've seen all of those movies a couple of times a piece. Kyle has seen very few of them, and the ones that he has seen, he doesn't like. So when we got to Jason Goes to Hell, fuck, he hated that movie. Look up the
Yeah.
soundtrack, Brad. Look up the opening title music for that movie.
I
Your ears will bleed.
I do remember it being quite bad, and that was the Harry Manfredini came
He
back with
he
that
did.
one, which
He did.
is a little embarrassing.
A little bit, yeah.
I will say there is an interview with the director on that disc. Um, Peace
He's
and
kind of a
Love.
prick. He's
I
kind
was
of a
gonna say
prick.
he seems very full of himself and
He's
cocky.
very conceited. He's very conceited.
Yeah. Which
He
I
was
mean,
like
I
21 when he made that, though,
and I can't blame him because I think I would kind of take it a little personally if you're branded as the worst movie of the franchise.
which
You know
I
what I
don't
mean?
think is true. Like, I
Yeah,
do
but
think
I think
Manhattan
that's
is
I
the
would say
worst.
that's the consensus by most fans. That's what I think is that this is the worst.
Either that or five, actually. Now that I think about it, because five is the one.
Yeah, yeah,
Spoilers, another one without Jason,
that too.
and it's also maybe the flimsiest in terms of structure. Like it
Hmm.
really is just just all the way down, and it tries to be funny and fails very badly, if you ask me. Anyway.
Reggie's pretty funny, I think. The little kid,
Oh yeah, the look, he was fine. Like
he's
he
good.
seemed like he was having a good time on the
Yeah,
set. But our
I
like
think
our
his name was
quote
Reggie,
final
wasn't it?
girl, it's like she's the what? Like that's a character.
Yeah, yeah.
Everybody at least goes big.
She's definitely one of my least favorite final girls in the movie
She's
in the
like the
franchise. But
gal from A View to a Kill. Like she's like that level of final girl. Whereas like
yeah.
the gal from A View to a Kill, it's like you're the Bond girl, really?
Hmm.
Like really? Okay.
Anyway,
Anyway, we can
not
get
to
off
bring us back
Steven's.
to Friday the 13th, but I've been watching all the movies. I've been reading that book I showed you. So that's all that is in my brain at the moment. It's just all Friday the 13th.
All right, Brad. Well, hopefully your next pick isn't a Friday the 13th pick, but hey, what you got, bud?
Well, unfortunately, it is a Friday the 13th pick. But no, no, no. This one, it's not like the greatest death, but I'm gonna bring it up because I did just watch it, and I love this box set. And the kill, I should say, is my favorite part of the movie. And here I have the Hellraiser Quartet of Torment box
Ooh,
set.
brand fucking new.
Well, that's the thing. Well, it is brand new, but I this is actually not brand new. It's actually 2 years old because I imported it 2 years ago when it was only available in the UK. And it is all 4K discs, so it will play on our players over here. But I was like, man, I got to get that. It's you can only get it in the UK. I got to get it. And then of course they release a US version, and I that was what finally lit a fire under my ass to finally watch this that I bought 2 years ago. Um, but I'll just single out the first Hellraiser, which I really like. Not like a perfect movie by any means, not amazing, but I like the style, I like the weirdness of it, I like the concept, the effects are fun, and for me, best moment in the movie, which I love, is the end. Trevor, have you seen Hellraiser? I should say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So it's not like a huge spoiler, but the end, our main bad guy, Frank, Uncle Frank,
Uncle Frank.
Uncle Frank, he has taken over the body of his brother, or he looks like his brother. I forget exactly what, but anyway,
He's like
and
wearing his skin, I think.
yeah, he's like wearing his skin, and the Cenobites come and they get him. They finally get him. They put all these hooks in him, and Uncle Frank's niece is watching and trying to run away and escape. And as she's trying to leave the room, he has all these hooks coming out of his face, and it's so metal, man. I love it. And the part I love about it, which is just the absolute best, is uh when like she turns back and looks at him and he's like getting his skin ripped apart and he goes, Jesus wept. And then he explodes. I love that moment. Like that. And apparently, I was reading a little bit about it. Apparently that was like suggested on set or an ad lib by the actor or whatever. Cause like I guess the original line was just like fuck you or something like really stupid. But, like, Jesus wept is, like, so just kind of like, like, it does fit, like, in terms of, like, Hellraiser and, like, there is, like, the religious imagery in there, but it is kind of just, like, a very weird, like, kinda esoteric line, almost a bit of, like, a Here's Johnny situation, just, like, you know, very unexpected, out of place, like you would not expect it there. And it just goes hard, man. I love that moment. Like that for me, like makes the movie, in my opinion. I love that moment.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's, I would say, the best kill in that movie. I mean,
Yeah.
the probably the most visually intense and gory sequence in the movie is the resurrection of Frank.
Which that
But
is
that's
great
not a
too.
kill.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's not a kill though. That's him
Because
reanimating. That's a really amazing effect sequence though.
the
Um,
Cenobites only kill Uncle Frank, I believe. If I'm, I guess they kill the or no, he Uncle Frank, the lady. I think Uncle Frank. I can't remember. I just
the
watched
lady
it the
with
other
the
night.
hair.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
the
Uncle
lady with the
Frank
hair
kills
who's
her.
really important in the sequel. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, the Cenobites don't rack up a kill count in the first Hellraiser. Ooh, ooh, ooh,
Are we
full
allowed to
screen.
show this?
It's Halloween. Can you get over it?
And then
Wow, Arrow did a great job.
it is a very nice set. It is very good, and it's got the first four movies in it. So yeah.
Is a Bloodline the one that concludes on a space station?
I don't know. I've only seen the first two,
Oh,
so
sorry. Um, well, there's a space
spoiler.
station in one of the Hellraiser movies. I just couldn't remember which one. But if that's the case, I have seen the first four.
Okay.
Nothing beyond that, though. Henry Cavill is apparently in one of the very, very late sequels, like
Mm.
baby Henry Cavill. Um, I think it takes place in like a video game or something, or online or some shit. It was that era of horror. But I I like the first two Hellraiser movies just fine.
Mhm.
They're Clive Barker. He has particular sensibilities. They're very unique and or were very unique in the horror space. I feel like it's better represented these days. But I think he directed the first one. Did not return for the second one, but he's definitely involved in the production. We have a comment here. Bloodline is the fourth one, I think. Hell on Earth is the third. Yeah, Hell on Earth is the one that has the club and CD head. There is a Cenobite with CDs that come out of his head, Brad. Spoilers. See, I
I'm
have
excited
seen
for
these
that.
movies. Yeah, the third one is where the franchise takes a veer. It veers off into like direct to video horror, just kind of like they're trying to franchise that shit. They're slapping Pinhead on a plastic lunchbox and they're selling it. They're selling it. Whereas the first two have some more dignity to them and actually are more concerned about like mythology and lore and trying to tell a cohesive story. Yeah, has the CD guy, haha. um, but the first two are like attached to the hip in a lot of ways. In some respects, I actually like the second one better, just because it has more money backing it and it's more visually creative. In that you go inside the puzzle box and you get to see Leviathan, the
I can see
Cenobite
that.
god, and stuff. It's just more visually intense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the first one has its sore spots here and there where the Frank kill is it's a banger. I mean, he didn't
I
have
love
to
it.
explode. He could have just been torn asunder, but no, he goes he blows up like the shark from Jaws, essentially. And it's like, whoa, that escalated quickly. But then it's like followed immediately by one of the worst effects in the movie, and that's the hallway critter, the upside down monster. Brad, do you
Yeah,
remember
that
what
one
I'm
does look
talking
pretty
about?
bad.
It doesn't look good. It's like that's the last scare in the whole movie is that piece of shit. Well, I guess we do get the bone dragon thing at the very end. That was kind of neat with
I
the
like
the
that.
homeless guy who blows up into the bone dragon thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
the second one, I think it just spreads its wings a little bit more. It goes some more interesting places. It has more money to work with. You get some nifty stop motion for the doctor character who starts offing people with his finger snakes, for lack of a better term. But yeah, the Jesus wept thing is really interesting because you're absolutely right. It is one of those quotes where I think a lot of people remember it, but they don't necessarily remember where it came from. At
Mhm.
least that's how I think of it. It's like Hellraiser wouldn't be the first thing I think of, but that quote is so catchy. But yeah, that's where it comes from. And you're absolutely right. As far as I know, it was an ad lib.
Yeah. Well, it is an actual, isn't that an actual biblical verse, I believe? That's
I don't know,
I'm
Brad.
pretty sure. I think that's like famous for being the shortest verse in the Bible. So it's
Oh,
like a
it
literally a 2 words. So that's where it comes from. Um, so it's literally a quote from, you
from
know,
scripture. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, which, uh, you know, these creatures coming from hell, there is religious imagery in the movie, so it does fit. Like, I don't know exactly, is he saying he's Jesus in that situation? I don't know. I don't know. But
Mm.
either way, it just fucking works. All right, it just works.
I mean, the whole thing with the Frank characters, he certainly does take a lot of punishment. That's for sure.
Oh
Like
yeah. Oh yeah.
that's his whole thing. He's like a hedonist, and
Hmm.
he does kind of have like a little bit of a crucifixion pose there at the very end. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like the one thing with the franchises, I feel like the whole, like, like, what's the correct term? Like, S&M, is that what I'm thinking? Like the whole,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I feel like that is like, it's definitely there for sure, but it's not like super overt where, like, I feel like it's almost like if you go into it not even like thinking about that, like you would just, okay, here's these creatures from hell, whatever, there's these chains and piercings and blah blah blah, but you wouldn't necessarily get that out of it unless you were like already predisposed to think that's what it's getting at. Which I like. I think that is interesting that you kind of almost have to bring that into it, because otherwise you can just take it at face value. But yeah, I'm a fan of. I've only seen the first two, but I'm a fan.
Yeah, Clive Barker is one of those authors actually that I've never read, but he it's interesting in that I've experienced other media of his movies. Obviously, he's done several of them. In fact, we've reviewed a few of them for Catching Up on Cinema a long time ago. We did Lord of Illusions. That was him as well. We haven't done any of the Hellraiser movies, but Lord of Illusions was him, and that's a fine little neo noir horror movie.
Hmm.
Um, and also, he did some video games with mixed results. Uh, I think Undying was the first one he did. Both of these were for the PC, but Undying and then Jericho he did for the PC and the Xbox 360, and that is a disaster. I think that scared him away from the medium, honestly. But
Oh
Undying
yeah.
is fine, and it does have his creative fingerprints on it. Like you can see him in there. But seems like an interesting guy. I've seen interviews with him. Never read his books though. There's a documentary that I'm curious, Brad. Does your box set have it? It there was a documentary specifically about the making of the first two Hellraiser movies that I have watched. I've wanted to own it, but I think it's out of print and it's kind of expensive.
I don't know.
Yeah, I can look
There's
it
a
up later. Not a big deal.
Yeah, yeah. I'll have to get back
Yeah,
to you
it's
on
okay,
that.
but
There is a
yeah.
feature called Being Frank.
That's kind of fun. But no, that wouldn't be it. I forget the
Okay.
name of it. I think it might be called Leviathan, maybe. Like the making of Hellraiser 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Santino contributes. Undying was great and Jericho was fun. Jericho was fun to a point, and then it got a little bit tedious. It yeah, it has some mechanics that didn't quite work for me, but horror shooters weren't exactly all that commonplace back then. Like it was like what Fear and like to a much lesser extent maybe Doom 3 or something, but beyond that there weren't too many of those at the time, and a squad shooter on top of that. But that's where it got ahead of its skis, was trying to make
Mhm.
it a fucking squad shooter. It's like this AI, this ain't AI, folks. Like these NPCs are dumb.
Yeah, I'd have
uh,
to maybe play this.
you
Try it
know,
out.
Brad, like I don't know if streaming is in your future, but playing horror games online is something I could totally see you excelling at,
Let,
because
let's
there's so many horror games these days.
let's look into this. Let's look into this. Let's team up on this.
I'll help you any way I can, bud. I
Yeah,
will
let's look
contribute.
into it.
Yeah, well, put a pin in that.
I'm
A
in.
serious pin. We will come back to this. Uh, Santino
Put a hook
contributes. It was a
in my
fun $10
nipple.
used game from GameStop. I agree. For $10, Jericho is fine. Same with what was it? Def Jam Icon. the fighting game with all the hip hop
Oh yeah.
stars. That game sucks, but it for $5 from a bargain bin, absolutely the best investment you'll ever make. Okay, so I suppose the pick is to me. Wow, we're going long. We're going long winded, so there may not be that many picks in terms of variety tonight. Uh, but we'll try to get something out of it. Okay, so you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to talk about another action actor, a guy who did a lot of action movies from an era slightly before. Oh, Santino contributes. Def Jam 2 was so amazing. I agree wholeheartedly, Santino. Def Jam Fight for New York, I think actually has representation at Evo. I think it's like an actual like money game, like a tournament game that is still played contemporarily. And also notoriously, the PS2 version of the game is apparently very, very expensive in the retro game space, and I happen to have it. So if I need to pay the bills or something, I guess Def Jam Fight for New York
There we
is
go.
going
Yeah.
on eBay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I did mention going to be talking about another action icon here, and he's from an era slightly before Steven Seagal. And I don't own every movie he has, but these are just some of the ones that I happen to have. So this is what I'm going to work with. So the man in question is, of course, Sylvester Stallone, and I have here the Expendables, uh, standard theatrical edition, and extended director's cut, which I don't know is actually superior, but it exists. The music editing to cover up the extended length of some of the cuts is a little bit embarrassing, where you can actually hear the soundtrack, the score for the movie, like skip. It's like kind of ugly, where it's like, ooh, you put that on a disc, holy shit. But it does give you some slightly more protracted action sequences. It does give Dolph Lundgren and Jet Li more to do. That's why it's on my shelf, is because it's different. It's actually very similar to his director's cut of Rocky Four, where it's like, I don't think this is better. It's just different. It just
You
has
gotta
more and
have
it's
you gotta
different.
have both.
Yeah, you got it. You got it. You got to do it. But in terms of kills, uh, I mean, these are standard action movies. There's lots of digital squibs in these movies because they shot them on the cheap and on the quick. It was the style at the time, still kind of is. But in terms of actual memorable kills, really, there's Terry Crews blowing people up with an automatic shotgun. That is pretty cool, where he does turn people into chunky salsa with a shotgun. Like a whole hallway of people explode into red mist. It's pretty fucking metal.
That's like the
Um,
only thing I remember from that movie.
dum, 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 people going splat. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty fucking cool. But I would argue actually the most distinct and awesome kill in this whole movie is kind of underplayed, but that's why it's kind of cool. It's delivered to Gary Daniels, who I wouldn't expect you to know who that is, Brad. But he's British. He's a martial artist. He's of sufficient skill to have stood opposite Jet Li, Darren Shalabi, and Jackie Chan at various points in his career. He's a very talented man. He's not asked to do that much in this movie, but he gets in a 2-on-1 fist fight with both Jason Statham and Jet Li during that same sequence, just prior to Terry Crews showing up. And he gets put in this precarious position where his arm is being held and he's leaning back, and Jet Li axe kicks him on top of the head, and his neck just goes. And the soundtrack of the movie, the score drops so you can hear the crack, and
Nice.
the timing of the edit and the sound is actually just really neat. Just like and it's like, oh, it's like he's dead. I liked it.
Love a good neck snap.
Yep, and it's also a unique neck snap. Like it's delivered via an axe kick when he's leaning back. It's not an angle I've ever seen before, and usually that's not like a killing blow. But in that particular position, it's like, yeah, his neck bent all the way back and hit the back of his spine. He is dead. Expendables 2. Also a Sylvester Stallone movie, along with all these other people who you may or may not recognize. I did mention propeller blades would come up again. Have you seen any of these movies, Brad?
Only the first one.
Okay. Well, this one, some people argue is the best one, actually. You could argue that, being as it does have a better villain in the form of Jean Claude Van Damme, who's willing to actually be a bad guy and do bad guy shit. But it also holds a special place in my heart because I had actually had to pull this off of a totally different shelf, Brad, because this is a Scott Adkins film. He has a very small role in
Ah.
this film as the Heavy. He is the odd job to Jean Claude Van Damme's Goldfinger. Differently proportioned, but serves the same purpose. Um, Scott Adkins, as you should do in this kind of movie, is positioned opposite Jason Statham. They're both relatively short, very agile British martial artists. Why not? So it's like a perfect setup where the two of them kind of give each other, they mean mug each other in the midpoint of the movie. And then by the time you get to the final act, they actually throw hands at each other. And it's like, that's good job. That's some good booking, to use wrestling parlance. That's doing it right. Anyway, they get into a fight, and there happens to be a helicopter powering up in the background while they're fighting each other, and it gets incorporated into the choreography, kind of similar to Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark. And Jason Statham puts on some brass knucks and slugs Scott Adkins a couple times in the face, and then the killing blow is he just uncorks a big old nasty hook, and he smacks him in the face so hard he whips around, and his face slams into the propeller, slams into the tail rotor of the helicopter, and his head explodes on screen. And it's this again, the sound effect and the timing. It's just like, it's like, oh, good job.
Is that
In a movie that
one
doesn't have that many distinct kills.
is that one rated R as well? Wasn't one of them PG-13 or something?
I think three is the PG-13 one.
Okay. Okay.
4 is back to R, but 4 is the worst movie I saw that year. I think that was last year, 2023. That was the worst film. I watch a lot of shit. You watch my letterbox. You know this. You know some of the garbage that I ingest, that
Oh
I
yeah.
choke down. And Expendables 4 was the worst film I saw that calendar year.
I mean, I had heard that from you. You were not alone. I'd heard horrible things about that movie.
It's so fucking disappointing. Not even disappointing. It's just bad. It's just really fucking bad. It's such a step down too, because they still had star power for Expendables 3. Like that's still a big action movie. For fuck's sake, they got another confirmed bad person, Mel Gibson, to be the villain in it. So, and he actually, to his credit, bad person and all, Mel showed the fuck up for Expendables 3. Like when he is asked to
Mhm.
do dialogue sequences, he demonstrates. It's like, yeah, this guy's got some of that acting shit. Like he's talented guy.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember
His demise
seeing
in the movie is not great, though. That's why I didn't pull it off the shelf.
I remember seeing him in the trailer for that one and thinking he looked like he was going to be fun, just like unhinged and you
He's a
know.
good villain in it. He
Yeah.
he he has kind of a Joker-esque sequence where he's they think they capture him and he's in captivity and they're interrogating him, and you can tell he's ad-libbing because I don't think they had a script, but he brings it, and he makes kind of everyone around him look kind of bad. Honestly, Glenn Powell's in that movie, by the way. That's the first time I ever saw Glenn Powell.
Mhm.
Dario the Hungry drops in and says, "Yo, what up, players? Yo, what
Hey.
up, Dario?" Dario is from the Discord, the Red Cow Entertainment Discord. I edit videos for them on YouTube on occasion. I'm actually working on one right now. Frankie, EJ, if you're watching, and I know you're not, almost done. A couple more days, and I will be done with the latest clip.
Uncle
But
Frank
hey,
in here?
Dario, glad you're here. Oh, is Uncle Frank in here?
This is another Frank? Okay. Another Frank. Okay.
uh, and also, I'll just throw up while I have it in my hand. Rambo, there's a lot of memorable kills in the Rambo films, in particular Rambo 4, or just Rambo, or John Rambo, if you're from outside the US. Dario asks, "What's the topic today, gentlemen?" You're a little late to the game there, bud, but basically we're talking about memorable kills from the movies in our collection. So not deaths, but kills. So that's a bit about it for me. I'm not going to go into detail on the Rambo stuff just because I think I've talked about it before, and
Yeah.
it
No,
was
that
more fun going on my Expendables rant anyway.
the like the gun, the big whatever you call it, the big gunner
The 50
sequence in the
cal,
yeah.
yeah,
That's you know, a memorable kill is when you are watching a movie and you go like, "Holy fuck!" Like that's and then I think that happened in that Rambo. It happened in Jason Goes to Hell, and it happened in that Rambo. I was like, "Holy shit!" Like, wow.
yeah. Yeah, I saw Rambo in the
Oh, that's a good
theater
one
and
too.
I had
Yeah.
the same reaction. Yeah, also, Dario points out Rambo tearing out the insurgent's throat was pretty gnarly. That whole
Hmm.
sequence is pretty gnarly. There's a lot of crazy shit going. That movie is pretty gnarly, actually. The camp raid sequence that kind of serves as the catalyst for the plot. The cuts are very very quick, very snappy, but your brain picks up on things. So it's like that was a baby on a bayonet and that baby got tossed into a bonfire. And it's like, oh, and we're doing that in the tent. Oh, Jesus. Like, it's pretty intense. And also the fucking movie begins with people walking on a minefield. Like, it really throws down the gauntlet early. Like, it lets you know this is going to be not, this is not your dad's Rambo. This is, we're heightening things quite a lot. um Anyway, that's enough out of my action horse shit, Brad. Would you care to do one more pick?
Yeah, let's go with this one here. So I got a movie here that um I think is maybe a little underrated. I don't know. I see all the criticisms of it, but I think these couple kills that I'm going to mention here are so good and so effective that I think kind of makes all the rest of the crap in this movie worthwhile. And it is from the producer of Paranormal Activity and Insidious. I have Sinister, Sinister with Ethan Hawke. Um, and I think that this movie has some goofy stuff in here. Scott Derrickson, I believe, is the director. Um, he's not like my absolute favorite. I think, like you know, I did like Doctor Strange. This is the horror movie he did after this wasn't that good, but I think this movie has great atmosphere. I think Ethan Hawke is really good in it. I always love Ethan Hawke, and I think that they're you know, the home movies, the home movies he finds. I think those murders are genuinely very unsettling, very creepy, very creative, and I mean, just the opening shot of this movie with the family you know, being hung on the tree with the bags on their heads is like it's a pretty crazy dark way to start a movie. Like that's pretty hardcore. Um I think maybe they needed to get a little goofier as the movie goes on because if it was that, you know, grim for the whole runtime, it'd maybe be too much. But I think once the stuff with the kids gets in, it loses me a little bit. But I think like the first half of this movie is like just so good, and the lawnmower moment is a highlight for sure. It's a little cheap because they do have the music stinger, like, to get you with
Yeah,
it, but,
yeah.
I think even with like, even, you know, even with that in there, I still think it is very, effective, and I, like, just, you know, I like it even with that in there. So, yeah, it's fun. I like it. I think, it's, like, probably for me, it's, like, in the 4 out of 5 range. I think they if they had, you know, just honed it a little more, it could have been like an all-timer. But I do really like, Sinister quite a bit.
Yeah, I think we reviewed that for catching up on cinema. And if memory serves, I think we both liked it quite a lot. By the way, Dario comments, Jesus wept, proceeds to explode. Yes, that is a direct quote from Uncle Frank. Um, yeah, I agree that like Sinister, it's kind of like most horror stuff that's major distinction. Most horror stuff that's legitimately trying to scare you.
Mhm.
Because I watch a lot of horror entertainment. I watch a lot of things that I'm kind of like a Terrifier or any of the louder, more like punk rock horror movies from like the 80s. A lot of them have a sense of fun to them where they're not necessarily out there to make you squirm or feel scared of what you're watching. It's just using horror iconography or horror settings or something to explore something or create a story. It's a branching off point. Whereas like something like Sinister is actually trying to be a scary movie. When you start to over-examine the horror is I think where it starts to lose you a little bit. When we keep saying Bagul and we're cutting to Vincent D'Onofrio on fucking Zoom calls,
Yeah.
it takes away some of the the mystery. It takes away some of the intrigue. It takes away the power of it just a little bit. But those early sequences when we're just watching the footage and you hear the projector sound and nothing else, like it's just pure silence, that's pretty bold filmmaking where it's just you're just letting the visuals and the pacing of the cuts and the atmosphere, the ambiance kind of do all of the heavy lifting. But then of course they have to get that little cheap orchestra sting in there with the lawnmower because I remember that too. And it feels a little cheap, but it's earned. It's like you got me. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it feels nice, but it's when the layers start getting peeled back and we start to examine things a little too much. That's like starting to lose me a little bit, but really well made.
Yeah.
That one bit with the kid coming out of the box is just it's unnerving in just like a weird kind of way where it's like I don't know what the fuck I'm looking at for a few
Right.
seconds
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like they really make his scream like they, like really like they make it so hot on the audio track and it like
Yeah,
gets distorted or whatever.
yeah,
Um yeah, like the thing with Sinister is like it's kind of weird because like there's the horror movies that are kind of like meant to scare you, but they're like still goof fests, like I like to say. Like I would put like The Conjuring in there. I would put like Smile in
yeah.
there.
Conjuring's too loud to be actually scary.
Yeah, like they're trying to be jump fest, but and like scare you, but they're doing it
Yeah,
in like kind of a fun way. This one, like it kind of gets into the goofy section as it goes on, but like it starts like trying to be like in the zone of like like a hereditary or whatever, like where it's like we're really gonna try to like go dark on this, and I kind of wish it had kept that for the whole thing. Like I wish it didn't get as a little like mainstream as it gets towards the end. But I still think I'm the person who's like I just love the journey over the destination. So I still think even if I'm not crazy about the ending, 70% of this movie I think is super effective. So I still really like it.
yeah. No, I liked it. I don't have any real complaints about it other than it just went some it put more emphasis on things that I kind of wish it hadn't. But
Hmm.
on the whole, it's an enjoyable movie. And did Scott Derrickson did he do the Black Phone?
Yes, that's his the last one he did. Um,
I
and I don't.
started that and was really kind of liking it, but I didn't get anywhere into it. Like the plot hadn't happened yet, but like the early goings of it, I was into it. But
Mhm.
does it stick the landing?
It was okay. Like it was decent, but it wasn't my favorite. Thank you, Dario. I appreciate that. That's
Yeah,
that's nice to
Dario
hear.
approved.
Yeah.
That's high praise.
Don't worry. The next thing I'll say, he'll be like, I retract that statement. So I'll take the compliment while
Brad's
it
on my shit
stands.
list now.
He must not have been here when I was talking about Jason Goes to Hell. So let's just keep her moving.
Yeah. But yeah, Black Phone, was it a good one or not?
Yeah, it
Would you
was
recommend it?
decent. I would say it's worth checking out. I liked it more than the other one he did was Deliver Us from Evil, I think. Yes.
What
Um
was that one? I barely
that one
remember what that was.
Eric Bana was a cop and
Oh,
it
the
was like an
cop.
exorcism thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember my friends talking a lot of shit about the trailer for that one. They were like, "What the fuck is this?"
Mhm. Um
I thought we all liked the nude man on the table scene, says Dario. Wait, never mind. He is referring to Jason Goes to Hell. There is, in
yeah.
fact, a scene wherein a man has his balls shaved by another man, who's actually Richard Gant, Brad. I don't know if you recognized him, but Richard Gant, who plays the Don King analog in Rocky Five. You were
Oh, okay.
damn Foo! Only in America. Um, but yeah, that was a weird thing that happened in that movie. And then that man subsequently melts, I think, a few scenes later.
The melting I love. The melting I
Yeah,
love.
the melting, yeah, just top flight melting. That's some good melting right there.
Yes.
But yeah, Scott Derrickson, like, I don't know, maybe he's more in the James Wan vein of horror, where he's a horror entertainer. Because remember, this man was recruited by Marvel Disney. Like, he
Hmm.
did do Doctor Strange and almost did Doctor Strange 2 before they had creative differences, so they say. It could be that he just can't resist the urge to kind of put on his entertainment cap and wow you, or throw some fun at you or something. Like, he can't just take it all the way home in like a serious horror movie kind of way, but he likes playing in that arena or something. I don't know. I'm talking directly out my ass.
I guess he directed Hellraiser Inferno as well. So
That must be one of the late sequels because I haven't seen that one.
that one, yeah, 2000.
Oh, maybe that's the Henry Cavill one. Or no, there's one that's called like Hell World, I think. It's called Hell World, Brad. Yikes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Anything else to say about Sinister, Brad?
no, not really.
Okay. Well, we've been running for over an hour here, so I think and Brad's on the East Coast, by the way. I'm on the West Coast, so it's still relatively early here, but I'll let you get back to your evening, but not before we do our speed round,
Of
which
course.
oftentimes takes a half an hour anyway, which is why we're doing it now. So I'll forego doing another pick in favor of advancing to the speed round. Would you care to go first, or should I, Brad? I mean, you just did yours, so I don't blame you if you want to break.
Yeah, if you want to take it away, go for it. Yeah.
Okay, well, mine's generally longer than Brad's, but feel free to talk amongst yourselves. Talk over me, Brad. I actually kind of appreciate it, so feel free to throw out whatever comments you want. So, folks, we have now entered the air quotes speed round of this particular installment of Tales from the Shelf. So it's at this point that we'll be kind of flipping through our runner-up picks, the movies that we pulled off of our shelf that we did not talk about at length today, but here's our opportunity to talk about them in brief. I have here Brian De Palma's Scarface, featuring Al Pacino. Brad, you've seen this, I assume, correct?
No comment. No, I haven't seen it
Actually,
actually.
it's important you say yes or no because I
I
don't
have
want to
not.
spoil this for you.
No. I mean, I know how it ends, but
Yeah, we all know how it ends. In fact, I think that ending sequence has been in other movies. I can't
yeah.
remember exactly where, but I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure I've seen it on TV and other movies. I won't spoil this for you then.
Okay.
There's an early kill in this movie that you don't actually see anything, but it was notorious at the time of its release for being exceptionally grotesque and brutal. You don't actually see it. It's kind of like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Speaking of Hooptober, um, you don't actually see, but it put a lot of like people using their imagination projected a lot of nastiness on it. But it happens pretty early in the movie. But I'd like you to be surprised by it because it's a fun movie.
I
A lot of
appreciate it.
cocaine, a lot of
I've
dancing.
I got it on 4K. I'm just waiting for the opportunity.
Okay. I have here Takashi Miike's Ichi the Killer, Koroshiya Ichi. Have you seen this one, Brad?
That one I have seen.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about then. There's the titular Ichi has blades on the bottom of his shoes that he uses to slice and dice people. Uh, there's quite a lot of gore in this movie. There's a bit where a person's face slides down a wall. There's a lot of obscene material in this. Not all of it, including violence. Just a really nasty film altogether, but also strangely kind of a fun movie. We have a comment here from Dario the Hungry. I don't know why I always say your name, Dario, like you're from fucking Bloody Roar, but Dario the Hungry. That's the official pronunciation of Dario's name. Yeah, true. Like the bathtub kill, good observation. Thinking back, it's true, implied, and aftermath, but nothing shown directly. And also, Ichi surprised me. It surprised a lot of us, bud. Fist of the North Star, the movie. Uh, just wall to wall filled with some of the most spectacularly gory kills in 80s animation, specifically Japanese animation. A lot of head explosions, a lot of viscera. Highly recommended if you're into that sort of thing. Uh, Commando, let off some steam, Bennett. It's one of the more memorable Schwarzeneggerisms. Ninja Scroll, more anime, and apparently this disc is expensive. I don't know. I think it's out of. I think Sentai Filmworks might be going out of business or something. But
Mm.
a lot of great kills in this movie. Again, kind of similar to Ichi the Killer. A lot of obscene shit in there as well. But quite a lot of neat swordplay kills. Very creative use of brutality. The Street Fighter collection. Sonny Chiba rips a man's cock and balls off with his bare hands in the first one. It's pretty great. Also, Dario comments, Ninja Scroll got me into anime. Fantastic. Yeah, I think that's true for quite a lot of people, honestly. One of the more famous, I guess, blockbuster rentals in the US for early introductions to anime if you were born in the 80s or 90s. SPL. I guess I won't spoil it, but the finale of this movie has some highly unexpected kills where it's like, oh dear, that sucks for everybody. I love that movie in general. Um, Jurassic Park, the entire franchise basically, but it's worth pointing out that Jurassic World kill that kind of blew up the internet for a little bit, Brad. You know,
Hmm.
the one I'm talking about with the gal that gets killed by both the, it's like a pteranodon and then she gets dropped into a mosasaur's mouth. It's
Yep.
just absurdly cruel for no real reason.
Yep. Yeah, I was thinking of that when you mentioned one of your earlier picks, or maybe it was when we were talking about Jason X, just like, the cruel and not the character not deserving it or whatever. But
Yeah, she was just kind of dismissive of the kids. Like she
mhm.
wasn't even that rude. Like I don't know, maybe that was Colin Trevorrow. As far as I understand, he's a little bit of a troubled individual. Certainly has lost a lot of gigs in the past few years, but maybe he and that actress had a problem. Like maybe they had beef or something. Who the fuck knows? Uh, Ninja Scroll was a movie I watched at an age that I most definitely shouldn't have watched it. Haha. Yeah, that was Akira for me when I was like 5 or 6. I walked into the room. Similarly, I also walked into the room when I was before I was 10 years old. Paul Verhoeven's Robocop, uh, the creation of Robocop, the death of Alex Murphy, is spectacularly brutal. Like real mean, real nasty. Like not only in terms of like the bloodletting, but just the atmosphere is just real mean. It's real cruel. And then on top of that, you have Mr. Kenny getting the dum 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 treatment from Ed 209, the Melt Man, Clarence Boddicker, Kurtwood Smith getting the fucking thing in the neck. And Robocop's great.
Is
We
that
like
is that
Robocop.
the is that the 4K?
Yeah, it's the Arrow
Nice.
hardback 4K. Yeah,
Nice.
the fiance, she formerly the girlfriend, now the fiance, upgraded. She got this for me because she loves me. Uh, Enzyme obliterating show in Guyver '89 was pretty gruesome as well. Funny you mentioned that. I actually have the Guyver OVA series, not in my hands. It's actually on the shelf, and I can't actually get to it because there's a desk blocking it. But I would pull it out just to put it on cam. But I do have here in my hand Guyver 2, Dark Hero. It doesn't say Dark Hero on the cover. What the fuck? But this movie, as far as I know, hasn't gotten like a real ass Blu-ray release. But this movie, similar to all the Steven Seagal movies that I rattled off earlier, features one of the most awesome overkills I've seen in a feature film. Where it's like, you killed him 5 times before he hit the ground. Was that all necessary? Absolutely not, but we kind of love it. So he's fighting a monster, a zoonoid, if you will, if you're in the know, and they lock up like in pro wrestling, like they lock up. He bends his knuckles back. He breaks all of his fingers, both of his hands, and the monster's going, "Oh my god, my mitts are broken." And then the Guyver whips around. He shoots a couple of laser beams out of his forehead laser because he has a forehead laser. Causes the eyeballs of the monster to go to like spill out of his fucking head, and then The Guyver jams his palm into the monster's head, pushes it against a tree, and crushes it against the tree like in stages, like. Oh yeah, and by the way, he also stabbed him with his elbow blades just prior to all that. Killed him like 6 times.
Sounds
Oh yeah, by the
amazing.
way, we have more comments. Oh man, RoboCop. Mr. Paul has a knack for excessive violence, and Boobas sure does. Good Dutchman, a good man representing his people. We also have a hello there. Hello, Scott. Also, we need that Blu-ray. Yes, we do. All Guyver things should be on Blu-ray, except for that 2000s era anime, that show. That did nothing for me. I got nothing out of that. Taxi Hunter. This is I think, yeah, it's a Herman Yao movie. So this is a Category 3 Hong Kong film featuring everybody's favorite Anthony Wong. I picked this up at my local Scarecrow Video here in Seattle. Check it
Who
out
put
if
out
you're
that
local.
disc? I like that artwork.
This is an 88 Films disc, and they
Okay.
do wonderful work when it comes to their Hong Kong or Chinese film releases. I'm more interested in the Hong Kong catalog, but this one features a bit like it has quite a lot of violence for sure. It is a Category 3 film after all, but the catalyst for the plot involves Anthony Wong's character's wife getting killed by a taxi, and she like gets dragged on the ground by the taxi and then run over. It's mean. Like it's like, whoa, wow, that went on a lot longer than it needed to. Anaconda. John Voight getting his jaw broken, swallowed by a snake, and then vomited up by a snake, and then winking before he dies.
The wink is
$5,
the
by the way.
best. The wink is the
The
best.
wink, the wink is the best. It's like, what's that? Like, I don't know if he decided to do that or whatever, but John Voight covered in saliva, snake saliva, and then winking before he falls down. It's just so ridiculous. I love Anaconda. I'm gonna make my fiance watch that. She'll hate it.
It is a fun one.
Jaws, Quint, like Quint getting it in this movie it's a more of a death than a kill, but it is a memorable fucking death. Like it's like 10 seconds of absolute terror, essentially. The Jackal. Have you seen this one, Brad?
No, but my parents owned that DVD because it came with our very first DVD player, but I've never watched it.
I like this movie quite a lot. Uh, do you care if I spoil a cameo and a death in it?
Nah, that's okay.
Okay, well, Jack Black, baby Jack Black
Oh.
from this is what 1998 or something around there. So
Mhm.
around the time of I still know what you did last summer. Around that vintage, he is helping Bruce Willis obtain a 50 caliber machine gun, and he also helps him test it. And Bruce Willis he tasks him with helping him calibrate the aiming of it. At which point, Bruce Willis casually blows off Jack Black's arm and then proceeds to mow him down with said 50 caliber machine gun. But he's really mean about it. He blows his arm off and he like makes him walk around with a stump for like a good long while, like a half minute or something. Just Jack Black going and bleeding all over the place. It's real mean. Like it comes kind of out of nowhere in a movie that isn't super violent, honestly.
Yeah,
Um,
that has me
if
intrigued.
What about the Scream franchise, Brad? What about the Scream franchise? You are the horror guy between us. I don't remember those movies having particularly brutal kills, though. I like those movies quite a lot, but I remember them being mostly like stabby, stabby.
Yeah,
The
I would
opening of
agree.
Five actually caught me off guard with Jen Ortega getting fucked up in the opening. Like that was particularly brutal for that series.
Mhm.
But beyond that, I can't think of too many that were like particularly memorable. Like maybe in terms of being memorable, the garage door from the first one that was just kind
Yeah,
of novel.
yeah, or the
Not
TV on, Stu
Matthew
falling off.
Lillard.
Yeah,
I'm getting
um,
woozy, man.
yeah. When I was thinking about this, and I say this with peace and love, because I love these 2 franchises, but I thought about Scream and I thought about Halloween, and, those, movies, those franchises, the kills are pretty meat and potatoes, just, like you said, like, stabbing it, and it makes sense, like, because. they're, they're not like taking place in like the real world or anything, but they're fairly grounded where like, the stuff with Jason, it makes sense why he's going to be, shooting people with a spear gun and like they can get a little goofier. Whereas Scream, like, it's usually young adults who are doing the killing. So they're mostly just going to be, stabbing people. So and I say that with peace and love because I do love those movies. I love those
I really
franchises.
like those movies. In fact,
Yeah.
I've been meaning to see 6. Uh, I still haven't. I started it on an airplane a while back, but I never finished it. And I think we
Ouch.
reviewed the 5th one actually for catching up on cinema. I think that's the only one we've reviewed though.
Yeah.
Um, Last one I have here is Silent Hill on DVD. Uh, there's one particular kill in this, Brad. Do you remember?
Is it the one where the girl gets like ripped in half or something?
She gets her skin
Yeah.
ripped off. It
Yeah.
it just, just like a band-aid right off. It's like, whoa, yikes, you've done this before. It's and also the finale of the movie, like the last 5 minutes of it is a complete bloodbath. But up until then, it's not like Silent Hill itself, like the franchise as a whole. It's not really based on gore. It's more atmosphere and stuff. But there's that bit where Pyramid Head grabs that chick and just zoop. I was like,
Mhm.
whoa, shit. Oh yeah, icing on top, cherry on top. He throws the skin at the door, like they're running away from him, and he's just like, "Damn it! Like, come back here!" It's such a
Yeah.
spiteful move.
I gotta watch that one
I,
again. It's been a while.
I like it's Christoph Gans is his visual sense, like the aesthetics of that movie are money, but the dialogue is so bad,
Mhm.
so bad. We have a comment here, a long one. Do you guys believe Matthew Lillard's character is still alive or not? A lot of fans do believe he is still alive and returned in Screen 7, 8, 9, or 10. That's a question for Brad. I do know that Matthew Lillard has had a bit of a resurgence as an actor in recent years. He was in Twin Peaks The Return, among many other things. He's doing
Mhm.
very well as an actor, like as a dramatic actor. So if you got to bring somebody back, I mean, a tube television to the fucking noggin, I guess you could survive that. Although I could be wrong on this, Brad. Does he jiggle after it goes on his head? Because I think it's implied that he's electrocuted on top of having a tube television smashed on his
Yeah.
head.
They do imply that. I wanna say I should have looked into it more. I think, like, Matthew Lillard, I wanna say it was him, was getting interviewed, and he said something like he thinks he's still alive or something, or he even commented on I think it was him or maybe it was somebody else. Maybe actually,
Oh,
maybe was it somebody from the last movie? I don't even remember, but I definitely could see them bringing him back. But I will say somebody made a comment about this, and I do think this is pretty hard to get around. They said if his character is still alive in this franchise, um, unless it's something where it's like he somehow he escaped from the morgue or the mortician was in on it and it was unless they do something like that, like if it's known that he survived that, um I like somebody said it's hard to believe that nobody in any of the other sequels would have brought him up as a potential suspect or mentioned him at all. The original killer does seem weird, that he wouldn't have any sort of uh mention in any of the other movies until now. I guess maybe you could say he maybe he's in prison. I would assume he would be, but I don't know. I definitely could see him being alive and then bringing it back, but it'd be very difficult to make it, you know, easy to swallow.
yeah. I mean, if while you're at it, it's like maybe I don't know, bring back Liev Schreiber. I don't remember how he died in those movies. I do remember that they went out of their way to take him off the board, like in I think the third one or maybe the fourth one.
Hmm.
Um, or hey, bring back Skeet Ulrich's character, but get Johnny Depp to play him or something.
Well, you need to watch Scream 6. Let's just say that.
Okay, uh, on it.
Although I think it was pretty early on. How far did you get into it?
uh,
Or was it maybe
they were at a,
isn't it Scream 5? I don't even I can't remember.
he was a ghost,
Yeah,
Brad. He
he's a
was
go yeah,
ghost. He
But
was
they bring him
Ghost
back.
Dad.
Like, yeah,
He
they
was
bring him
Ghost
back
Dad.
though. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, as an
So,
actor, they brought him
yeah,
back. Yeah,
yeah,
Skeet Ulrich is in the movie.
yeah.
Skeet. That's the name. His parents loved him so much. Okay, well, that's all my picks, Brad. Speed round is to you, sir. What do you
Okay.
got?
Yeah. I have obviously could have more. These are just some ones that jumped out at me. I have now. I'm a huge Texas Chainsaw Massacre fan. I have one of the movies in the franchise that I'm not crazy about, but I have the remake here, Texas Chainsaw
Oh,
Massacre, and the shot in the van after the hitchhiker kills himself, and we have the shot that pulls back through the van through the bullet hole. That's pretty incredible. I love that.
the
Um,
rock salt was pretty memorable too, if memory serves. I don't
yeah, I don't
remember if
remember
that
that
was an
one.
actual kill. I remember somebody losing a limb and then rock salt being placed on the stump. I could be
Yep.
fabricating that, but I remember something like that
Sounds
happening.
sounds right. I've only seen that one once, so I should revisit that.
It's
Um,
not bad, actually.
yeah, no, I liked it. Uh, movie that I think is very good and great to watch this time of year. I have Haunt from my
Oh,
boys Scott Beck and Brian Woods. Did I get it right? I did. I got their names right. Um, this is like so fun. It's like haunted house, but they get there. Turns out like everything is real. Being run by a bunch of killers. It's goofy, but it's pretty hardcore. Like it's pretty extreme. The gore is it's very gory. And for me, most memorable is there's a guy who gets killed like with a hammer, and then they take the claw hammer and they like peel back part of his face. Like they stick it, I forget exactly where, like in his nose or under his lips, and they peel it, and it's like a half second little thing, but it's memorable,
sounds
and that
gnarly.
sound is
Sound
yeah.
is a huge element of this kind of stuff. That one's been on my watch list for a minute. I actually like was scrolling through like a streaming service the other day, and it popped up, and I'm like, maybe I'll watch that tomorrow.
Yeah, it used to be on Shutter. I don't know if it still is, but I'd recommend it. It's a fun one.
Okay.
Um, I have The House of the Devil from Ty West. Almost, I got him confused with his brother Ty East. No, this is Ty West.
There's a lot of ties.
Specifically, I won't get into spoilers, but there is a scene of somebody in a car who very unexpectedly gets their head blown off, and it really takes you by surprise. Um, Hopefully, that didn't spoil too
I'm
much.
gonna be watching every sequence in that movie when somebody's in a car like a
There's a lot of
hawk.
people in cars in that movie. You don't know
Okay.
when it's gonna come. There's at least 2 characters I can think of that spend time in cars. Um, I've got Terrifier 2, which we kind of already talked about the franchise. The bedroom scene is obviously the most memorable here.
Yeah.
Um, but Trevor, you said you guys just recorded your episode. I don't want to spoil anything, but
Yeah.
out of the 3 Terrifier movies, which one would you say is your favorite?
I think three, honestly.
Really? Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, two was two. The pacing was a little sluggish. Like it's a
That
little. It's
I
not
do agree
self
with you there.
indulgent. It just needs some trimming for sure.
I
We
do
hang
agree with you
out
on
too
that.
much.
Yeah. I have Scanners from David
Hey.
Cronenberg, which we all know is the second best movie in the Scanner franchise, right behind Scanner Cop 2, obviously. Um, and I could have gone with any of the kills in Scanner Cop 2 because they are amazing. But obviously, the head explosion in Scanners is kind of hard to top. Um,
Yeah. Did you ever see that part in Scanners when that dude's head blew up?
what is that? Is that Wayne's World or what is that? I'm
Yes, it
trying to think.
is.
Okay.
That's from Wayne's World. But yes,
Um,
that is one of my favorite gifs of all time. Is
yeah.
that man's head exploding?
And it's such a good scene that honestly the rest of the film kind of suffers in comparison.
It really does.
I like the battle at the end, but yeah, that head blowing up scene is it's hard to recover from that.
Mhm.
Um, we have a kill that's not like actually it kind of goes against this the fun of this one, I suppose. Like the idea of this theme. But I think I kind of wanted to bring it up. I have sadly only on regular Blu-ray. I don't have the 4K. I've got Stephen King's Pet Cemetery. I could talk about the slicing of the Achilles heel. Obviously, is
Yes.
great.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, the one I actually was thinking of was the death of the boy, which is one of the worst moments in the movie. To be honest, I just the sneaker tumbling and the dad screaming at the sky. But I really do love this movie. I think it's underrated. Like, I get the criticisms. I think the performances are pretty bad, but I love the concept. I love the source material. And I do think, aside from the bad performances, I think there is some really good direction here from Mary Lambert. I think it is very good. It's got its flaws, but I really like it. And I love the stuff with Zelda. I think
Yeah.
it's a very good movie.
Clearly the superior Stephen King film featuring a cat in, in a prominent role.
Yeah,
Cat's Eye
I would
being
say
the other
so.
one.
I would say so. Not that I
No,
dislike that movie, but yeah, I would say so.
Cat's Eye actually has like one of my favorite things ever in movies, and that is a self-titled theme song. I maintain if I was a filmmaker, every movie I ever make will have a self-titled theme song. Where it's like,
Yeah.
regardless of the name of the movie or the genre, it should end with a dumb song that bears the same name and features that name in the chorus. And
Yeah.
Cat's Eye
Yeah.
has a
Well,
fucking banger over the end credits.
that's a good one. I was at a Halloween party. It's not a self-titled song, but I was at a Halloween party this past weekend with an actual DJ.
Oh,
And I, because like I said, all I've been thinking of is Friday the 13th. It's all I have in my head. It's sickening me. Um, I tried to request Alice Cooper, He's Back, the man
he's
behind the
back. The
mask.
man behind the mask.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they didn't have it. So
Fuckers. Not doing their job. I actually have an 80s movie Halloween playlist that I think I shared with you last year, but forgot to send the link. I added a few things to it.
Mhm.
Actually, there's a song from a very bad slasher movie, Brad, called Shocker. Have you heard of this one? Have you
Oh
seen
yeah,
this? Have you
yeah.
heard about
I've
this?
never seen it, but that's a Wes Craven joint.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
what happens when he does Nightmare on Elm Street, and it's been a few years, and the studio's probably asking for, "You got anything else, Wes?" And it's like,
Mhm.
no, but MTV's a thing. Let's do this. Anyway, there's a song from a German metal band called Bonfire. There's a song called "Sword in the Stone."
Okay. All right.
Sword stands for dick. Stone stands for vagina. He wants to put his sword in her stone. You get it. Anyway,
Gotcha.
it's kind of been a big hit with me, like this year for some reason. That song is just
Send it my way. I'll check it out.
yeah. No, I updated the playlist. I'm very happy with it. But yeah, that DJ needs to work on that. Man Behind the Mask and Ready for Freddy and
Mhm.
anything from Ghostbusters, like On
Yeah.
Our Own from Confirmed Bad Person, Bobby Brown, that needs to be on there for sure. That's a banger. This has been on my mind for some time now. This is a comment, by the way, from Scott Walker. What about different colored ghost face robes, red, brown, and white? Which one would be more scary, a red ghost face or a brown ghost face robe? Brad,
I
I'll put
like
that
the
back up.
idea, actually. I think a red ghost face costume could look cool. I would say probably avoid white for potential it might look bad for certain reasons, but
Uh
red
huh. A
I
white
actually
robe
like.
on
Yeah,
Ghostface.
yeah, I would say avoid the white robe.
Yeah, maybe not.
I actually that is a good idea. I'm surprised they haven't tried to do different colored costumes. Like, a red ghost face with the white mask. I think that could look pretty sick. I like that.
Yeah, I mean the wrestling fan in me wants to see a red and black one so we can have NWO black and white
Yeah,
and
yeah.
NWO red and black and we can have a ghost face war. And the ghost of Randy Savage can come back and pick a side. Maybe Sting will show up.
Mhm.
Uh, Also, another comment from Scott Walker. The three greatest werewolf movies of all time is The Wolfman, American Werewolf in London, and Ginger Snaps. Would you agree, Brad?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head to disagree. The only one, and I haven't seen it, the only one that would jump up to my mind that people would maybe throw in there would be, The Howling. Um,
That's the transformation alone is worth the price of admission. I wouldn't
yeah.
say the movie as a whole was fantastic, but I think that was Rob Bottin. The
Mhm.
same year, I think, as American Werewolf in London. Wolfman and American Werewolf in London are basically untouchable for me. But
Yeah.
yeah, Ginger Snaps I actually haven't seen, but that's the Canadian one that I've actually heard very good things about.
I like Ginger Snaps. It's good. Mhm.
Yeah, I've heard very good things. I
Yep.
think the one gal was in Freddy versus Jason. Like she's one of the early victims for. Starts out as a victim of Freddy, but then gets off by Jason, and that's kind of the catalyst for them butting heads. It's like you
Yeah.
stole my kill, son of a bitch.
Yep.
What's wrong with a brown ghost face robe? I don't know. He'd look like a monk, and
Yeah,
that's just
Brown.
somehow less intimidating.
Yeah, it's just a little too similar to black, I feel like. Like, if you're gonna do a
Yeah,
different color, you gotta do something really, like, go
yeah,
totally,
a
stark,
major
very
deviation.
bright red or something. But yeah, the red one, I maybe it's just because I like red velvet cupcakes, but I'm into that. That sounds pretty good.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing something like that.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I would welcome that. Anyway, Dogmas says, "What's up, fellas? We're about to sign off. Sorry, you're showing up just now, or at least just commenting now. But that completes our speed round of this
Oh,
month's
I
Tales
got
from the
a
Shelf.
couple more actually.
Brad has more. Brad has more. We're still in it, folks.
I mean, if we're
Continue
if
commenting. We're
yeah,
not done yet.
we've saved the best for last here, I think. I've got 4 more here. I've got Hereditary. Uh, I won't spoil it. I'll just say the telephone pole, you know.
There's a couple of good kills, although I guess one of them doesn't really count as a kill. It's more just an act of brutal self
Yeah.
mutilation.
Yeah. Yeah. But, you know, Kyle knows what I'm talking about, right?
Oh, Kyle
Obviously.
watches that movie every
Yeah.
5 fucking minutes. Hereditary is
um
kind of a big hit in Kyle's house.
I've got the movie that Friday the 13th Part 2 ripped off. I have A Bay of Blood from Mario Bava, aka Twitch of the
Hmm.
Death Nerve, which I think I don't know, the writer, director, or whatever, I don't know if they explicitly said that they weren't inspired, but I think they've said that like they didn't intend to rip it off or whatever. The book I'm reading about Friday the 13th said that the deaths in part 2 were suggested, like the concepts of them were suggested by one of the producers, who is not interviewed in the book. So like the people that are talking about him say he may have seen this movie from Mario Bava and stole from them, and being like, just a producer, just like, let's rip something off, make money, would have no issues doing that. But I believe the directors and writer of part 2 said they hadn't seen this until after. But anyway, the one that is the very obvious ripoff is a couple making love in a bed, and they get a spear through them, which
Okay.
is very explicitly stolen in part 2. And also there's a machete to the face in this movie that is not like quite as much of a straight rip off. Like that one could just be, but it's similar to a death in part 2 as well. Like there's enough similarities here where somebody in the production must have seen this movie. But it is good. I really like this one. It's a fun early slasher. And
Neat.
then my last one is a twofer, and
Mhm.
I don't know if it's popped up into frame at all, but I'll say that I've been rocking today my Suspiria t-shirt.
Yeah, I was going to
So,
comment on it, but thank you for
yeah,
putting that front and center.
I got it from seeing Claudio Simonetti's Goblin in concert, and he did they played the score along with the movie, which was a lot of fun. So I have both versions of Suspiria, and to be honest, I prefer the original. I love the original; it's one of my favorite movies. But in terms of memorable kills, the scene in the remake of the girl rehearsing in the dance studio and her body contorting and getting like, I don't even remember what is causing it. Something, one of the witches is doing something, but her bones snapping. That kill is pretty memorable. Like that is a solid, nasty kill.
I
But this
haven't
one
seen
obviously,
either.
yeah,
Oh, go ahead, Brett.
just this one has some great kills as well, like the opening of the girl falling through the ceiling and the rope going around her neck and hanging her. Like there's some great ones here too. Um, but yeah, both awesome movies, I think.
Yeah, I haven't seen either, but I know of some of the kills in them, and there's the one with the razor wire in the first
Yep.
one that I'm
Mm-hmm.
aware of. But the I haven't seen the sequence in full, but I've seen a couple of just shots from the remake, from the dance sequence, and yikes, that is truly brutal. Sound design, the performance also, like that's like an underrated element of staging some of these kills. It's sometimes not all effects, sometimes it's also performance, and there's some suffering happening in that sequence. It's really unnerving. But I haven't
Mm-hmm.
seen the whole sequence like front to back, but just the couple of snippets I saw, I was like, "Yikes! That is some daring, bold shit." Like
Yeah.
they go some places not every filmmaker would be willing to go. There's like a lack of dignity in that. I don't even think it's a full death. Honestly, it's just like a horrendous injury.
Yeah, I can't remember how it ends, what happens to that character, but um I mean, Luca Guadagnino is the he's become the hot
He's
thing now, and that was I think that was post Call Me by Your Name, so he was kind of established a bit there, but
yeah,
now he's
yeah,
huge.
yeah. Queer is due out soon, right?
Yeah, the trailer just came out for it. I
Yeah,
don't know when it
yeah,
releases, but um, yeah, could it be the first time ever, and it's possible, could it be the first
yeah.
time ever that in a top 10 list, if I do my top 10 list, number 1 and number 2 are from the same filmmaker?
Yeah, that's right. Challengers, same calendar year.
Challengers, same year. It's certainly going to be up there on my top 10. I'm not saying it's going to be number 1 or anything right now, but it's certainly up there. We could have a potential masterful 1-2 punch from Luca at the top. We'll see. I mean, a lot could
I mean,
change,
I'm
but
kind of hoping for it. That would be really exciting.
I'm pushing that narrative now.
I've yet to see any of his films actually, but I would really like to, especially after hearing you talk about Challengers. Like everything you said about that on your show on the Cinema Speak podcast, uh, sounded pretty fucking great. Sounded like something I would get a lot out of. And he
Mhm.
apparently doesn't miss. Like he doesn't have that many films under him as far as I know, but he don't miss.
No, yeah,
Uh,
every single one I've seen, I've enjoyed to, a certain extent.
cool. So we're about to get out of here, but to acknowledge the comments, because we did get a couple while we were talking about other stuff. Scott Walker is back and says the different colored ghost face ropes idea I got from the Scooby Doo episode where they are different, where they are the ice cream factory where they encounter three ice cream flavored phantoms, chocolate, strawberry, and vanilla.
Okay.
Neapolitan ghost face.
All right. I like it. I like it.
And also, I would absolutely love to see a remake of American Werewolf in London, but a female version of the same movie, same storyline, or a sequel. American Werewolf in Paris has female werewolves. It's kind of a shit ass movie, but Tom Everett Scott. Do you remember Tom Everett Scott, Brad?
The name sounds familiar.
He was like the second coming of Tom Hanks for like 5 seconds, and it didn't happen. He did a direct to video Van Damme movie uh, opposite Orlando Jones, the Make Seven Up Yours guy. So that tells you where he ended up. Fighting the Seven Up Yours guy and Jean Claude Van Damme in the same movie. Um, he was a big deal. He was That Thing You Do, and American Werewolf in Paris. And was it Dead Man on Campus? Or no, it wasn't Dead Man on Campus. But
No,
anyway,
yeah, he
he
was in
he
that. Yep. I got to
he
pull up here.
was. I
Yep.
remember shit. Yeah, I existed in the '90s. He seemed like he was gonna be a big hit, but just didn't quite work out. Not sure what happened there, but I thought he was charming. I thought he was a good actor. Um, anyway, I think that's about it for tonight's discussion. But thank you for sticking with us, folks. If you were here from the beginning, it ended up being a longer one than usual. But hey, we got a little more comments in the chat than we normally do. So hey, that was fun. I welcome it. Um, but before we go, hey Brad, would you care to let our listeners, and we actually have viewers this time, know where you can be found on the internet? Like, what is your podcast? Where can they
Yeah.
find you?
So if you liked my comments here, and my Jason Goes to Hell hot takes didn't turn you off, you can check it out at the Cinema Speak podcast. If you're on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you listen to your shows, you can follow us on X or Twitter at the Cinema Speak. We're on Instagram as Cinema Speak Podcast, and also we're on YouTube as Cinema Speak. And you can just find us easy, flat up on the web, straight up, cinemaspeak.libsyn.com.
All right. Thank you for that, Brad. As for myself, my show is called Catching Up on Cinema. You should know that. You are watching it right now. And we do have a website. It is not functional, so don't go there, but it's catchinguponcinema.com. You can also find us on the social medias. I don't use them very often and very seldom log into these things. So feel free to try to hit me up at Catching Cinema on the Twitter/X or at Catching Up on Cinema on the Instagram. These days, I'm really only active on the Red Cow Entertainment Discord, and even then, I pop in and out. I work for them as a quote slob. I edit their clips for YouTube. The Red Cow boys, Frankie and EJ. So I guess check out my work there. And I guess right before we sign off, I'll just acknowledge Scott Walker one last time because we got another comment. Why not? I do want 100%. Brad, can you read this and tell me what he's alluding to? Because I don't actually know what this means. I know who Dewey
So,
is. I know who Dewey is. I
yeah.
know it's Scream related.
So Amber, I forget who Amber was. I'm not
Okay,
as
well
well
that's it.
versed in the last two Scream movies, I'll say.
All right, well we're cutting it there then. Sorry, Scott Walker. We don't have an answer for you on that, but I'm glad you have your theories. Keep at it. If you put out content, perhaps I'll
I'll say
watch
I
your.
think he's right. I think they're gonna go that route. So I think I'm with him. I think he's right. Whether it makes any
Okay.
sense or not, I don't know. But
I don't have a fucking clue what that means, but sure. But
yeah.
yeah, if you put out a lore video or something, post a link. Maybe we'll check it out or talk about it on the podcast. But yeah, that being said, thank you so much, everybody who tuned in. And